There's a phrase in Ultra that says, if you're feeling good, wait half an hour, you'll feel shit. And if you feel shit, wait half an hour, you'll feel good. And it's that.
That was Ned Phillips, backyard ultra champion, founder, CEO, and now on a mission to teach people sales. This is a raw and open conversation about endurance, ego, and resilience. Ned shares how he went from selling horseshit door-to-door to leading and losing a multi-million-dollar startup across Asia. What it taught him about leadership and why suffering, both in business and in running, is the ultimate teacher. I am Jason Hunt. This is Execs Who Run, the show on life, leadership, and the miles in between. Now, let's dive on in. Welcome along to the show. Ned, how are you doing today?
I am good, thank you. In the spirit of the show, I have had my run today, so I'm feeling great.
Amazing. Well, that's probably the perfect segue into the first question I always ask. But tell me about your most recent memorable run. Maybe it was today's.
Well, actually, mine was just over 10 days ago, talking about most recent. I love backyard, and I did a practice 100K, so 15 hours from my house on a loop. So I did 6.71K 15 times on the hour, every hour, 6 minutes rest overnight. And I truly adore it. It's quite a special thing to be, the only idiot out there running, and it's good for the brain, good for the body. So yeah, it was a 15-hour 100K backyard simulation just 10 days ago.
Yeah, well, we're going to get right into that obviously a little bit later, but kind of just piqued my curiosity now. Like, how often do you do those types of simulation runs in training?
Quite off. We're coming up for a race. This will be my sixth backyard I'm going to do. So I do it 2 or 3 times before, anywhere from 8 to 12 to 15. We call it yards in backyard. A yard is a loop, which is 6.71K. I know it's a bit weird when I said I did a yard, but I will do that 2 or 3 times, not more than 100K, because I've done 6 backyards and I've done, a couple of 100 yards in training. So I know the deal of coming back to your seat and getting a juice. But, I'll be honest, and we can talk about this later, left to my own devices, I would just keep running all day anyway. So
I love it. And obviously listeners can hear an accent that you are British, but whereabouts in the world do you find yourself now?
I am in Bali today. I've been in Asia for the last 36 years. I was actually born in Australia, in Hornsby, but I grew up in the UK, but I find myself in Bali today.
Yeah, nice. Not a bad place, although probably a little bit rough to be running, I imagine, although you're probably used to the humidity now, right?
I've been living in the tropics, Singapore for 25 years, Bali for a few. So, when people say, isn't it too hot to run? I'm like, so there's choices. Either don't run or run in the heat. And I love to run, so no choice.
I love it. Well, we're going to set the stage a little bit about you. And to start with, I think we'll just talk a little bit about your kind of professional background, or maybe we'll start with a bit of your personal background, which you touched on there. So born in Australia, grew up in England. Maybe talk about that kind of transition from the UK to Asia as it kind of pertains to your career.
I grew up in the UK and Scotland, great childhood, fairly hippie parents, kind of self-sufficient, cool. And, but when I finished, went to university, did economics, not because I wanted to do economics. It was the only thing I could kind of vaguely do. And it felt easier than like biomechanical engineering, which I didn't know or anything else. But when I left it was so I'm 58, it was 1990. And I found myself in London just selling insurance door to door. Honestly, commission only, knocking on doors. Hi, do you need life insurance? I think the listeners can appreciate it wasn't, highest on the list of fun things to do. And honestly, the transition was literally like a rainy day, 1991, February in London, it's pissing down with rain, knocking on doors. And I see an advert in the paper, because there was no real internet back then, that said £100 flights to Australia. And I'm like, I got an Aussie passport. It's raining. This job sucks. And honestly, I'm not even joking, Jason. I had £100 and maybe another £100. I got a one-way ticket, rocked up in Melbourne, found a backpacker place and started doing odd jobs. And, I spent a year in Australia and then was traveling. I met a young lady who's from the UK. We got together and we were traveling. We said, let's go back to the UK. We'll travel through Asia. And that's 1991. And that was 35 years ago. We've never made it home since.
I love it. It's a great story. And was like Singapore the place you landed in to start with, or
No,
why Singapore?
we left, literally, we left Darwin and flew to the closest place, which is Timor. And I'll never forget, go to Darwin, Westernized society, you take like a 45-minute flight. I'd never been to Asia in my life. And I was like, holy shit, this is chaos. Like in 45 minutes. Kupang, which was this, the main city in Timor, was like, it felt like a different world, because it was a different world, right? I was like, so no, we traveled through Indonesia and Malaysia for a few months, and then we landed in Hong Kong, and we spent 10 years in Hong Kong. And, that's actually where my love of running came, because the hills in Hong Kong, if listeners don't know, is truly amazing. One of the great running cities of the world. Spent 10 years there, and then moved to Singapore for work, and spent 23 years in Singapore, and now live in Bali.
Yeah, nice. Okay. And how would you describe your career in a word?
Salesman.
Salesman. I love it. I love it. And that maybe pertains to what you're doing currently, and we'll get back to that. But how did you get to you started obviously selling insurance in the rainy London streets, but how did that kind of progress to, I guess, back to where you are today?
I didn't have this deep passion at school, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be an engineer, or, a profession trade. And don't want to get too, on the couch and why am I me? But I'm the youngest of 3 kids. I love my brother and sister, but I remember as a young, they used to argue and, just crap on each other a lot. And I seemed to be the clown or the joker in the middle, like the people pleaser. And I found a role that, I like to make people laugh. I like to be that person who talks to people. And that's kind of what sales is, getting people to like you, talking to people. And when I landed in Australia, straight up, Jason, I actually worked for a company that sold horse shit, like garden fertilizer in bags. It was called Better Grower Fertilizer. And I was cold calling people selling bags of actual shit, like shit. And I always tell this little joke, which was after a few months, I was pretty good at it. Like we were cold calling from the phone directory. Hello, Mr. Jason. How's your garden going? Great. Well, whatever. I'm wondering if your garden would like to grow better. We have the best fertilizer. Oh, I realize you're in this street. Our salesman's coming past with some fertilizer. Could show you some of the could he pop in? Blah, 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 crap. And after 4 months, they said, Ned, would you like to run a team of people? And I remember, and it's not exactly like this, this is my joke. I'm like, I don't think I want a career talking shit. And then I realized, oh, wait, 35 years later, that's what I've done my whole life, right? But so I kind of fell into sales, got to Hong Kong, found a job selling advertising, which was a bit better than insurance and a bit better than shit. And then I got a job selling financial services advertising, so books about financial services. And because I was selling to people in finance, I got a job in finance. One of them went, oh, you're a good sales guy. Why don't you come over to finance? I'm like, yay, because it pays more. So I ended up working in brokerage. And for people who are a bit older, they might know a company called E-Trade. It was like Robinhood. Before Robinhood, it was one of the first online brokers. So I got a job selling there. And very quickly, they were like, well, you're a good salesperson. I was head of sales. And then a few years later, the CEO left. And they're like, oh, because you're a sales guy, people like you and you talk a lot and you get TV time in the terminology. Mm. And the CEO in America was like, do you want to be CEO of our company for Asia? I'm like, I can't even spell CEO, dude. What are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, but everyone likes you. I'm like, so sure, let's go. So at 37, I was CEO of an American listed company's Asian operations, and I just rolled that from there. And another company came past and said, oh, we'd like to be CEO of our company. I'm like, oh, pay me a few more pennies and let's go. And not to be too cynical about the world of finance, but people are in it. And then 10 years ago, I made a bit of cash, was CEO of a variety of Singapore Stock Exchange company, not the Singapore Stock Exchange. I decided to do my own startup, spent 9 years in that, founder, CEO of that. It went very, very big, and then to zero. We can touch on that if you want to. But yeah, that's my career. And now I'm a full-time solopreneur teaching people sales.
It's an incredible journey, and I think there's some key things in there. Obviously, the sales piece sits under there. A very entrepreneurial bent. Obviously, you started your own company. We will talk about that a bit further, but even just coming over to Australia and trying to find your way and doing different bits and pieces, it's a pretty cool story. You've glossed over the fact that you kind of built some pretty cool stuff, even in some of those roles in terms of stock exchanges across Asia, and probably quite heavily involved in the financial services ecosystem in Asia during that time. But yeah, tell us a bit more about probably what was the greatest and the worst part of your career in your startup.
Yeah, look, I appreciate it. As a 58-year-old dude, you have a superpower, which is you've just been working for 35 years. And so what you build up is a network. So yes, to be fair, do I have a strong network of financial services people across Asia? Yes. And I'm very grateful for that, and particularly as a sales guy. And I have built, I've built stock exchanges. I've run listed companies. So very, very grateful for all of that. Yeah, I decided to design and build a company that what it does is what it did was it designed and built saving and investment apps. So in every country, people can now save and invest for their future digitally. But in 2016, a lot of banks or asset managers or financial advisors didn't have a digital product. So we decided we'll build it and sell it to business. So I'm a B2B guy, man, not B2C. I'm a business to business. Oh, man. For a while, we were the coolest kids in town. Like, we raised 20 million of funding. We had HSBC, Standard Chartered, biggest asset managers in the world. We had Brazil's biggest bank, Saudi Arabia's biggest bank, Indonesia's biggest bank. They were buying our technology. By the end, we had about 250,000 customers using our technology to save and invest for their future, had about 4 billion of assets under management, had done about 20 million of revenue. But I can't remember the chap who flew too close to the sun, full of ego and hubris, whatever the right word is. We got ahead of ourselves. The team was 150 people, and what we got wrong was we kept customizing for every client. So let's say in running terminology, we weren't just selling the same shoe every time. Everybody got like a special pair of shoes, because they all wanted slightly different colored laces or this or that. And, that's not economic if you're just charging the same price. So what happened pretty rapidly, for 6 years when, I don't want to get too into the weeds of startup, when startup money was free, zero interest rate policy, we were good at raising money. I was good at raising money, and we raised a lot because we had a good story. We had the world's biggest banks. We had hundreds of thousands of users, but the revenue, we were always loss-making because we were supported by venture capital. When it was clear that interest rates go to 5% and venture capitalists don't support non-profitable startups, like, it gets hard real quick. And, I love this phrase, not because I love it, because it was very painful, but when you have 9 months money left in your startup, so 9 months, what's called burn or runway, which means, 9 months left. For the founder, the days are long, the months are short. You can work 20 hours a day, but those 9 months before you know it. And what I should have done? The minute I realized raising money was harder, we should have cut hard, 70%, but we cut 10, 20%. And as we were running out of capital, I don't want to call them bots. It's just life. It's just human, right? Let's say, so what they do, as we got down to 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 2 days, nobody's going to save you because they can buy up the pieces. In the same way, if you walk past a running store and the shoes are $200 and it's going liquidation tomorrow, they're selling shoes for $10, you're not a bad human, but you'll wait till tomorrow, right? You just will. You're not a bad dude. And that's the brutality of it in that, I have this phrase in that if you're the captain of a ship and it sails home victorious, it was the crew. If it sinks, it was you. So somebody didn't act quick and decisively enough. In the good days, we were superheroes. So yeah, it closed, it liquidated. If anybody on this call has never liquidated a company, don't do it. It absolutely blows. We actually sold the company 9 times in liquidation. So all of our customers brought the tech and carried on using it, and they hired all of our people. We just didn't get an out. And the last piece just to say is that, it was incredibly painful, the mental health challenge of knowing something is, at one point, we were worth a lot. And I owned a decent chunk of the company that lets your head deceive you. When people say, oh, you're amazing, the company's worth a lot, you tell yourself you're a genius, right? And that false thing in your head, it's another whole topic, but we built very publicly. So we were Startup of the Year. I met Jack Ma. We won Jack Ma Startup of the Year. We got money from everybody, all this type of blah, blah, blah. Because I like selling. But if you build in public, you have to die in public. So when we died, all the media was like, yay. But they were, overwhelmingly very kind. They were like, look, you guys didn't do anything wrong. You just got the business wrong. And, they kind of wrote, look, because I have my thing on LinkedIn that I'm the ultra running guy. They're like, look, don't think this dude could have tried harder. Like, it didn't work, but we respected this dude tried. So the coverage was very nice. And it said, this dude is a great sales guy. And they literally kept saying, if we were a startup, we'd hire this guy to be our startup advisor. So it went from brutality and, closing and liquidation to many startups going, can you be our advisor? Can we just pay you to be our advisor? Can we do this? And out of the bonfire, out of the embers was born a new opportunity. So yeah, man, it was amazing at times and absolutely brutal at others.
In my research, I've kind of was seen a little bit about you as a leader, and it all seems very positive and a very human-centric leader and whatnot, which I imagine is somewhat rare in a few instances. One, in financial services in general, doesn't necessarily have the greatest rep. Probably in sales overall is probably doesn't have the great rep. And maybe in a tech startup, well, maybe that's okay. But in general, not really people-centric organizations and whatnot. So I guess I want to ask about, as a leader and being focused on people like that, was that the part that was the hardest when that business is just starting to fall away beneath you?
Yes. Yeah. I've let people go before as a leader because you have to in business, but, there was tears, like when it came to the end, and telling people it was gone, it was tearful and painful and hard. And I don't know if I'd mentioned to you before, but in 2019, my startup won best place to work in Singapore. And I don't just mean from startups. We beat Google, Facebook, everything. Like, we were number one rated on Glassdoor, which is an employment rate app. And the Singapore government did a survey and found out, even though we just had 100 people, we were the number. I love people. I think people are the greatest invention in the world, right? I don't actually love tech. So, and your job as a leader is to make people want to come to work. There's a really interesting dynamic here in that it's not your job to tell them what to do. Think about it. Like, if you go to the movies or you go on holiday, you pay. Why? Because you want to, right? But you get paid to come to work. Why? Because you don't want, oh, wait, hold on. You don't want to come? Is that why I pay you? Oh, wait. A leader told me this. He's like, imagine you made work a place that they wanted to come and you paid them. How magical would that be? Your job as a leader is to make them want to come to work. Now, it's not all going to be perfect and it's not all great. And that's what I learned. Your job is not to tell them what to do. It's to make them want to come. You do that with motivation, with words, with empathy, with, as a guy called Simon Sinek said, he has a phrase called leaders eat last, right? Like you take out the rubbish, you do the shit, you show that you work, you carry their bags. It's not the other way around. Yeah, the head of finance, like, nobody had an office at my company. Nobody has an office. There's no offices. We're all humans. Like, we're all the same. Let's go. Like, we'll do it together. So yeah, like, I don't want to say letting people down, because I don't think I let them down. I tried my absolute best. It didn't work, but the human cost was hard here.
Maybe let's switch to a slightly lighter note, and I'm sure we will come back to this in our kind of main topic a little bit later. How did running come into your life?
Not through school, not through anywhere there. I was living in Hong Kong. Like, I have an exact point. It's kind of strange. I have an exact point. I think I was like 26, 27, working at a publishing company with a group of sales dudes in the room. And it was one of those sales rooms, everyone was making fun of everybody and was like, I want to be the champ. And, I love sales rooms. I love the competition, the tomfoolery, the silliness. Anyway, this guy called Justin Hodge, South African guy, stands up and goes, I'm running a 100K race. It's in teams of 4. Who wants to join me? I have no running background here. Like, no, zero. And honestly, like, Jason, I remember just putting my hand up going, yeah, me. I have a desperate need to fit in. I like to fit in. I do. I like people. I like to be around people. I don't want to be left out. I want to be the last at the party. I got better at that. I can leave a party. I don't go to parties because I'm 58 now, but if I did go to parties, I could leave earlier, but I couldn't. And Justin said to me, "You doing it, Ned?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro. Like, let's go." Anything. And 6 months later, we ran a 100K race It's called the Mackelhaus Trail or Trail Walker. It's quite a well-known ultra race in Hong Kong through the hills. We found another South African guy who has become one of my dearest best friends, a guy called Rob Hart. And we were just like 3 random dudes. And we did a bit of training. Are you ready for this? Out of 1,000 teams, we came third. And then and me and Rob particularly, me and Rob were like, not only are we okay at this was fun. So yeah, first race was 100K straight out of the gate.
I would struggle to hear anyone else ever tell that story. I don't think many people on the planet would be like, yeah, I'm going to start running and I'm going to do 100K. I think a lot of people, they have the idea of like going and running a marathon is the first thing they do, and because that's kind of the thing. But 100K is a bit of a different.
It was, but here's the interesting thing. I don't think I put my hand up for the 100K. Justin was a cool kid, you know. And I know it sounds really silly to say that I'm a 28-year-old man and I want to hang out with the cool. I'm just being super honest. That was the reality. Justin was a cool kid. This sounded cool. It wasn't. Oh, I want to run 100K. I'm like, hey, I want to hang out with the cool kids. And if that's what a cool kid needs to do, let's go. I'll hang out with the cool kids. And as per chance had it, the other cool kid was Rob, and we had fun, and I enjoyed it. And that's how running came in.
So you're 28, you've just run 100Ks. You're like, oh yeah, this is actually more enjoyable than I was expecting it to be. Where did your head go? Like, what were you going to do with this newfound passion of yours?
You know, and I always believe in saying it absolutely as it is. Like, you know, we came third. I was like, wow. Like, and I like, again, being a sales guy, you have an ego, you have a bit of attention. People are like, oh shit, you're good at this. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, thank you so much. Oh, that's wonderful. You know, like, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend, no, I didn't like that. I like that. I was like, and to tell you how bad I was at it, I had cotton shorts and a cotton t-shirt. Listeners, turn off your mic for a second if you don't want to hear this. I had rashes so bad from my groin, I had blood running down from the rashes in my groin down my legs because I was wearing cotton shorts. I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know. I had, you know, from my nipples, I had a white cotton t-shirt from like Giordano, and I had blood streaks running down. I didn't know what it was. Nobody told me about Vaseline and rashes and chafing and all that BS. And I think if I'd come last and we hadn't finished and, you know, I just had blood running out of my groin, I would have been like, okay, this blows. I'm not doing this again. But there was enough in there, and particularly Rob. Rob was like, you want to keep going out at weekends and doing this? Like training? And Hong Kong's very hilly. Like, these are big, not big, Himalayan hills, but they're hills. So if you've been to Hong Kong, they're proper hills. And I'm like, yeah, dude. Yeah, man. And we started doing these Thursday night runs in the dark, and Rob's a bit of a wild dude, and we'd go and run like from like 7 p.m. till 11 p.m. in the dark without torches, and then go and have some beers. And like, it just became part of this kind of wild side of life. And I didn't race a lot. And so where it took me was, I was loving it. I was doing it. And then, you know, the road came in, started doing a couple of marathons, ran like a 3:58, then a 3:50, and I was getting a bit faster. Then I was like, oh, I quite like the road. So started to run a 10K, and I ran it in like, I don't know, 43. And I was like, wasn't lost, and started to go to the track. And then there was these fast boys and girls at the track. And I'm like, oh, look at, so I started finding all these different things, and yeah, just loved it. And that's where it took me, just to all these little avenues. I kind of didn't start from a 5K to a 10K. I started from 100, came down to a 5, and I've gone back up to the long.
So how did you land on what distances you wanted to run or what you enjoyed the most? Because you obviously tried the spectrum.
In my 40s, definitely I came down to the 5s and 10Ks. I wasn't fast, Jason, but I was an 18-minute 5K guy, which is not embarrassing. It's
respectable.
You know, It's respectable. You know, for an amateur dude, you know, you can have some fun. At the track meets, I was like, not the track meets, on the track sessions on Tuesday, was hanging off the front pack, you know. So again, to my desire to play with the cool kids or the big dogs, you know, I was hanging off, because nobody in Singapore's lightning, you know, there's 17-minute guys, apart from Rui, but, you know, most guys are 17-minute guys. So for maybe 10 years, I was hanging out, and I really wanted to break 3 hours in the marathon. So I decided, you know, I ran an 18-minute 5K, a 38-minute 10K, a 126 half, but I never, so for about 10 years, it was, let's go at the marathon. Got down to 3:02 in Tokyo in 2014, which is, like obviously 11 years ago, I was like 46. Definitely with a bit more focused training. If you run an 18-minute 5K, like I could have got it.
Yeah.
But I let a couple of years slip. I went to Ironman. I went to Kona. So then I actually got a back injury. I got sciatica in my leg. Had to get some surgery. Had to got some back surgery. Doctor said swim and bike. Don't just run. Of course, here comes triathlon. Of course, I wasn't fast enough for Olympic because I couldn't swim. Like, ooh, Kona. Because 302, and I'm a pretty resilient dude. And I'm like, my first Ironman, I think I ran 335 off the bike, which in an Ironman, it's, it'll move you up the field. And because I train in the hot, I ran 335 in the heat. So
right.
I'm like, I swim like a brick. I cycle okay, but I can run these mofos down. And of course, there's, of course I'd love to be a swimmer, but there's something in Ironman, motoring through the field, or motoring 5-minute Ks, but motoring. And so I got into Ironman for a while, made it to Kona. So the decisions were kind of ego-driven, I'll be honest. Can I break through in the marathon? Can I get to Kona? And then the combination of how I got to Ultra was, I think I've mentioned this to you. Since I was 40, I've run my age on my birthday. So I started by running when I was 40. I decided to run 100 minus my age, so 60K. So when I was 41, I'd run 59. So by the time I'm 80, I'm going to run 20K, et cetera, et cetera. When I was 50, I decided to run 50K every week of that year, which is not a lot, but it's still better than zero. And on the last day, I'm on an island surfing off Sumatra. I did all 50K in one day on sand. And then the next day, I went surfing. My leg was very tight, and I ripped my hamstring completely off my leg, completely off. Leg dangling in the water, like leg dangling in the water. So I was out of running for a year and a half while my hamstring, I couldn't walk for like a month. I couldn't run for 9 months at 50. So when I came back at 51 and a half, you asked me what decision. I'm not getting fast again at 51 and a half. And I now, one of my legs is a tiny bit shorter. So if you watch any of my little LinkedIn videos, you see I have a hitch. I have a little. So I had to drop my ego because, I'm a 25-minute 5K guy now, right? Which I used to laugh at people. I was like, what do you mean you can't run 5 minutes per K? Like, are you sitting down? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I was definitely like, and I was like, yeah, but everything indicates I'm good at not stopping. And so I was like, all right, I got to get comfortable running 6 and 7 minutes per K, and my running choice is now Ultra. And that's I suppose been the journey. Try to be fast, try to do Ironman, and now trying to do Ultra.
God, it's really incredible. And we're going to dive into the deep topic, our main topic for the show today, which is the art of suffering. And we're going to talk about, obviously, backyard ultra, because we touched on that at the start. The question I want to ask first, though, is, and there's already a little bit of thread of this throughout the journey that we've discussed, I think for someone to be good at suffering, there's some kind of predisposition to be able to be good at this. And, I think anyone who's going to jump into sales in early age will probably have that, jumping to the other side of the world and going and doing things. Like, none of that's necessarily easy to do, startups, all this kind of stuff. What was it in you that was that predisposition?
What about this, Jason? And I don't know if I have the answer. So I'll give you a few thoughts. I walked to school for 3 miles there and 3 miles back from the age of 4. So that's 10K a day from the age of 4, right? I also grew up in a household where my parents I grew up not North Scotland, but Central Scotland. We didn't have central heating. My bedrooms were cold, and my dad's view was cold is good. And he wasn't a taskmaster at all, but, if you're cold, put on another jumper, right? And we never got sick. Like, we played in the snow, and we had a fire in the main room, but apart from that, your bedroom, if it was 0 outside, it was 0 in your bedroom, and just it'll be okay. And, I think there was quite a lot of that. It wasn't that my parents were like, oh, you ought to be tough. It was like, so I think that was the beginning of it. the other side of it, and in my disposition, and I don't know why, like, it is really hard to describe. Like, I take perverse pleasure. So there's just an example. Let's say I have a flight at 6 a.m. and I have a late meeting till 10 at night. I won't book a hotel. I'll just go sit in the airport in a chair because I know I can, because I know it's okay. Like, I know it's okay. I know it's okay to do it. And I think it's this thing that life has taught me, that it's okay to suffer, and it gives you good skills. And the predisposition, maybe as a kid, my parents' view was always the same. Like, for example, we were self-sufficient. I didn't eat meat till I was 18 unless I could catch it. And it wasn't a hard life. It was a wonderful. I don't pretend I was some totally out of the way. But everything I've tried this hard, it's okay in the end. And even this startup, like, I had mental health problems from the startup, and it was incredibly hard, and, lost all my money at 57, which is not what they tell you to do in normal financial behaviors. And it has been really hard, but I think it's okay that things come out of it. So maybe, like Jason, I don't have an exact answer, but I think the answer is repeatedly doing hard things, not always on purpose and not because I'm trying to do hard things, shows you that it kind of makes you, I want to say, a better person, just makes you more of who you are. And I think, and the last piece of this, and I followed Lazarus Lake. I think most of your listeners, or hopefully, will know who Lazarus is, the creator of Barkley and Backyard. He says we all have too much comfort in the world. We could all do, no, I need to be very careful when I say this, we could all do with more suffering. There are people who are really suffering, right? In the world today. If we're lucky enough to be on LinkedIn or to be recording podcasts, we don't have enough suffering. If we're hungry, we go to the supermarket. If we're cold, we put on the aircon. And Laz's view is if we all had a bit more suffering, we would all be more kind and more understanding. So it's a bit of a long-winded answer. And I can't put my finger on it exactly, but it's a combination of those things.
Mm. Is there a moment, whether it have been career-related or running-related, where you first realized how good at suffering you were?
Yeah, that first Mackerel House with Rob and Justin, when you have blood running out of your crotch and blood running down from your nipples, and we're still able to push on, and even at the end, I wasn't tired. Of course I was tired, but I wasn't that. And I was beat up and I was in a mess, but my endorphins were
bleeding from your crotch. Yeah.
Correct. And by the way, now, I support Vaseline single-handedly now. I must buy a tub a day and put it all over that. So shout out Vaseline if you're watching. Love you. But I even when that was the point. And even today, and I don't know. So my dad is a psychologist, and he believes he is over-adrenalized. So people, I talk a lot. You should come to my family lunch one time. Jesus Christ, I can't even get a word in. It's chaos. It's utter chaos. My dad is 89. He's so excitable. He gets up at 4 a.m. He's still running 5Ks. I think there is an adrenaline. Even when I did the 100K the other night, sure, I was tired. I didn't sleep all night, and I just carried on with the Sunday. I don't go to sleep on the couch. I just crack on. And so I think I have a DNA disposition from my dad of being what, he calls over-adrenalized. So even when I finish a long run, I don't want to sleep on the couch. I want to get on with shit. Let's go. And I think that's just a genetic thing.
I wish I had that, because I get home from a long run and I spend the rest of the day on the couch, with as much food as I can find. So it would be quite nice not to have to do that. But,
I do like the couch and I do like food, but it doesn't have to be done.
That is kind of wild. I want to ask about Backyard, because that is probably the definition of suffering, if one exists. And for those who don't know what Backyard Ultra is, essentially you just start running, and every hour you go and run a yard, right? 6.1 Ks, and you just keep going until the last person is standing. So you have to be able to suffer, right? Because you just need to be able to suffer more than the last person. When did you first discover Backyard?
So Lazarus Lake, who is the creator of the Barkley, I think most people who in Ultra have heard of the Barkley, the infamous race through the woods, is also the creator of Backyard. So Lazarus is 70. For any of you, you know what Lazarus looks like, right? You've seen him, Jason?
Yeah.
He was a 1:17 half marathon guy in college. Like, dude could run. Dude was a runner. Like, dude, everyone thinks now he's just like this hillbilly from the woods. Dude ran. And he actually had the idea for backyard when he was 17 at school because he was quick, but not quick enough. And he said, I wonder what race I could win. And he thought, so it's actually 6.7K. And the reason it's 6.7K is it's 100 miles a day. So 100 miles divided by 24 hours is 4.1 mile an hour. Because there's this, a bit like a 3-hour marathon sub. If you can do 100 miles in a day, that's like the standard of ultra, right? It's a bit like as an amateur, if you can run sub 3, you're an okay marathoner. If you can 100. So his idea was 4.1 mile an hour on the hour every hour. And he thought of it at 17, but he didn't start it until about 15 years ago. And obviously it's caught on. I don't know if you saw the Sydney backyard that this was weekend. 600 people turned up. It was like a big show.
Wow.
Big show. I found it so I followed Laz for 20 years. I followed Barkley. I mean, I used to get Ultra Running magazine. I mean, I'm a geek on Ultra. Like I adore it. And I followed Laz, real name Gary Cantrell for the listeners. But backyard exploded during COVID. And I did my first one during COVID on my treadmill in my bedroom. I ran 160K on my treadmill in my bedroom during COVID on a Zoom call with 3,000 other runners. And that's how I found it, because I don't know about you, but I hated lockdown. I assume you did. And even in Singapore, I wasn't meant to run more than 1K from my house. And I was like, fuck it, this dude's going to let me run hundreds of Ks in my bedroom on my treadmill, and I'm not allowed out for 1K. Let's go. Let's do this. And it was called the Quarantine Backyard Ultra. We were all on Zoom calls on our treadmills in our bedrooms, mid of 2020. And it was crazy. Like, one guy orchestrating it, our Zoom call screen, I had my camera, and I think I ran 23 yards. I came 40th out of 3,000. And I was on the last 2 screens. You could see people dropping off the Zoom call as they left. I was like, this is my sport. I'm not fast anymore. My superpower today is not stopping. Like, I think after 35 years of getting punched in the face by either career, remember, I've sold insurance door to door in London. Like, I got punched in the face hundreds of times a day. I don't care anymore.
Did you actually get punched in the face physically?
Never.
I've kind of been far from it, but
no, never. But a combination of, and so that's how I found backyard, and it's been an absolute love affair.
Okay, you've got to tell us about your most recent one then.
I appreciate it. Because of COVID, a satellite or a team's backyard was created. Every year, Lazarus had the top 75 backyarders come to his backyard. It's called Backyard because it's in the backyard of his farm in Tennessee. And for any listeners, just a tiny bit here, it's called Big's Backyard. The reason is Laz has a dog that is big, and it's called Big's. And whose backyard is it? It's not Laz's. It's Big's.
It's the dogs.
So when people say, I'm going to Big's, and people, it's a big race. It's big dogs. Sadly, Big Dog died a couple of years ago. You won't believe this. Laz has another dog. It is small. Guess what it's called? It's called Little. It's called Little Dog. Little Dog sadly just died. Anyway, because of COVID, every year, 75 people, before COVID, 75 of the world's best, the people who'd run the most yards in races over the qualifying period, would go to Laz's farm and run Big's backyard to find the world champion. In 2020, nobody could go. So he was like, wow, what do we do? And he came up with the idea that every country around the world that wanted to participate would get their top 15 backyard runners. They would race together, and the countries would be ranked by the total number of yards of all 15 runners, right? And for 3 years in a row, Belgium has won. Belgium is the undisputed kings of backyard. So if one runner ran 30, the other runner ran 32 total. But then the individual winner is the national champ and got a slot to Big's the next year. So it created this ability, because otherwise you could never get to Big's unless you were like one of the best. So in 2020, I was on the Singapore team. Singapore's not a deep squad. We have a couple of legends, but not deep. I was on the squad. I came 6th. In 2022, I came 3rd. And in 2024, I won. And I knew I had a shot, but I didn't. We have a guy, I won with 26 yards, 180K. We have a guy who's been 72, Joshua Toe, all bow to the king of Singapore, Joshua Toe, who went to Big's and ran 72, but he was injured and didn't want to go to Big's on the day. And I was the last man standing at 26. and I got a ticket to Biggs, and I mean, you can see my smile. Like, I followed Laz. I am a geek of it. I adore backyards. And I'm like, I'm going to go to Biggs. Now, just to be clear, the 75, I'm the 74th ranked guy. My best is 28. Most people there have gone 80 hours. So let's be clear, 80 hours is 500K. 13 people on the roster. This is the Super Bowl. The World Champs, it's in 3 weeks. 13 of the people there have already gone 100 hours before, 670K. Imagine if you want to win, you know you've got to go 670K before the game starts.
That's insane. It's actually insane, isn't it?
Isn't it wild?
So what's your plan then?
And thank you for asking. When I went, it's really interesting. When I went to the Singapore race this third time, I knew I had a shot. Like I knew I went there to win. I don't want to be egotist. I knew I had a shot. And clearly I had a shot. And 26 was a very low target, but I got it. I don't want to be, I believe this phrase, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. So I don't want to talk myself down, but I'm a 58-year-old dude. I'm the second oldest person there. I'm the second lowest ranked guy there. These guys are running 100. I am not running at 100 hours. So my plan is to, if my wife can hear me, like, you're going to have to scrape me off this. I'll swear it one more time. You're going to have to scrape me off this fucking course, man. Like, I want to go and see what, this. I want to see what this old man is made of. So what am I dreaming? I'm dreaming of 72, which is ridiculous. Nothing would suggest I can do that. 72 hours, 500K. I think if I get above 40 hours into day 3, which is 320K, I will be happy. I don't want to say I'll be unhappy if I stop in the 30s or the 40s. And listen, my best is only 28. And this course is very hilly, 150 meters of climb on every elevation. But, every day I run now. Like when I ran 100K the other night, I didn't have any headphones. Nothing. Just all I thought about was, at Biggs, I'm not stopping. At Biggs, I'm not stopping. Like, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping. Like, I'm not. And my brain doesn't break. Again, I think we should all be proud of certain things that we're good at. My body will break. My brain will not break. What Laz says, never die in the chair. Never give up by sitting in the chair. Get timed out. There will be a where I physically won't be able to make it back. So I want to, right now, if you offered me in the 50s, I would take it. Anything less than that, I wouldn't take it.
Yeah, wow. How are you able to do that? Like, what is it in your brain that enables you just to keep going? Like, we talk about the art of suffering. Like, there must be some science to the art as well. Like, what is it that you've unlocked or enabled in yourself to be able to just quiet the pain or embrace the pain or whatever it might be? Like, talk to me about that.
There's a phrase in Ultra that says, if you're feeling good, wait half an hour, you'll feel shit. And if you feel shit, wait half an hour, you'll feel good. And it's that I can separate the moment from the longer path. I'm very good at that separation of moment from longer path. I think a bit like life, learn when my startup was no money and the landlord's going to lock the door and the staff are not getting paid. You deal with it, but separate it from the longer path of what you're trying to do. And I think that's what suffering is. If I could distill it down, is the ability to quiet the mind in the moment and accept. I think Ultra's a great analogy for life. Life will kick you in the nuts, right? It really will. But it doesn't kick you in the nuts all day long. And if you can separate that reality. So, but think about this. So let's, and Jason, my average heartbeat at Biggs will be 115, 117. Like, this is slow motion car crash. Like, I'm not hurting. I'm not anaerobic. Like, I'm grinding it down, and you're pushing very slowly against the rock that's pushing back. And I think in my brain, like, I've been ultra running for 30 years. So I've pushed that rock a lot. Like, I push the rock a lot, and I know it's okay. And that's the other thing. I know it's okay. Like, I know it's okay to hurt. I know it's okay. Like, I don't mind it. Courtney Dauwalter's famous thing. Be privileged you're in the pain cave, because when you're in there, look around. Because it's very hard. Like, I don't want to sound like a dick. I need 200K to get in the pain cave now. Like, I need that 100K I did the other night. Sure, a little painful, but wasn't the pain cave. Yeah. I think it's that. I think if I could tell anybody who's trying to figure out how to suffer, is to be incredibly thoughtful and calm in that moment that you're suffering, and understand that it's a privilege, that you live a comfortable enough life that you can choose to suffer. And I'll tell you this, and I will take one breath in and one breath out before I say it, because I can be very ranty about this, which I excuse myself. When I meet people like, oh, I did an ultra, I don't know why I do it. I'd never do it again. I'm not sure why I'm out here. Dude, stop. It's the greatest privilege that you are able to come out here. You don't know why you do this? Come on, people. This is amazing. In your model life, you don't get to suffer, and you get to suffer. You do this because it is joyful for your soul, for your spirit, for your body. So, and I think also, thanks to my dad, who's over-adrenalized and passed on some weird chemical, biological combination of some genes that are good at not stopping.
I wanna ask a potentially loaded question, and I hope it's not going to be too loaded. Just what I know about you and as a leader, how you might approach things. But I'm definitely a believer of doing hard things, and personally, I've seen the benefits in my own life of working through difficult situations, or doing hard things to build up resilience, and how that plays in your life more broadly, right? Now, I'm probably a little bit risk averse in some of that, and I do it in somewhat of a controlled way. Some of that's because I like to be relatively competitive as a runner, and so I know that it's a long-term game. So I won't push myself to do something that I know that may have a long-term downside to it. How do you see the balance between doing the hard things that are hard things to learn from? There's a line where it then pushes into just stupidity and potentially dangerous or damaging, or whatever it might be. And obviously that is so subjective for everybody. How do you think about that? And there's lots of influencers out there that are doing these things and people follow them and whatnot. Have you put any thought into that as an idea?
A lot. It's a difficult question, because there's the reality and sensibility of life. Don't go out and die, right? And it's pretty clear, right? But what is the line? I think so it's different for everybody. My son often says to me, so I have a stock answer when somebody's not achieving something. I'm like, just do more, try harder. He's like, Dad, it's really not that. He's like, Dad, I know you can, my son's 23, right? Gives me a bunch of shit. He's like, Dad, just because you can run 100K, it doesn't mean just screaming at people, do more is going to work. I'm like, I know, but it kind of does, right? If you want to do more, just do more. Okay, let's go. Right? And when I say I understand it, I do also kind of rack my brain a little bit when people are like, yeah, I have to stop work at 5. Well, you don't. You just work harder. Just work a bit harder, right? No. Yeah, I don't know. Is it nature? Is it nurture? Where does it take us? I have read all of the Law of Running. So Tim Noakes' famous book. I don't know if maybe you've seen it already. Okay, seriously, the LORE, not the law, LAW. And in there, he has a thing called, do you know the central governor? You know what the central governor is? So the central governor is our biological bit of our brain. Now, whether this is correct or not, that stops us from killing ourselves from running, right? Because you can't go past that. And if you follow the Brownlees, and I'm sure you've seen the famous Jonathan Brownlee collapse where Alistair picks him up.
Yeah.
What they talked about is they trained their bodies, but what they actually trained was their brains to run themselves unconscious. So Jonathan had the ability to move that risk line so far forward that he ran himself unconscious. Now, that's why he got a gold medal or a silver medal behind his brother. And if you look at the Brownlees, or you look at the Norwegians today, I think they're tapping into, apart from high carbohydrates that we talked about, all this type of stuff, I think that line is incredibly important. Look at Shackleton, look at, people who climbed Everest, right? Clearly nonsensical. Clearly it wasn't going to work. Shackleton's famous advert, wanted men, said men back then because it was men, not women, but that's changing times, of course. But he said men wanted for dangerous trip, long, hard hours, dark, cold, limited supplies, minimal wages, safe return doubtful, honor for all who make it. And he was apparently overwhelmed with responses. So is it purpose? Is it desire? Is it a combination? Look, do all the things I do rank highly on the sensible scale? No. Is backyard good for you? No. Is it the most wonderful thing I've done? Yes. How do I square that circle? I don't know, man.
Well, maybe what is the practical advice? How would you, for anyone listening and going, all right, I feel like I need some harder things in my life, or I need to learn how to suffer more. How would you tell them to get into suffering more or to doing hard things in a way that's safe so they can kind of find where that limit is?
After this, and I've actually written like a ultra running poetry book. So I had a podcast for a while. And at the end, I did Ned's Drop. And Ned's Drop was always about this. So I have 50 short poems, 120 pages of motivation about, and it's called One More K, but a lot of the stories were called Always. They were called Always, and they're very like short line, short type of stuff. But it's like, always try. Even if trying is just going down to the street that you normally do, and you normally at that lamppost turn, go one more lamppost. Just go one more. I'm not here to tell you to run 100K. I'm not here to tell everybody they've got to do, backyard or whatever. Adventure can start on your doorstep. We don't need to climb Everest. But what it takes is the ability to realize that what you prescribe as your comfort zone is self-limiting, right? And, maybe just tell yourself, if I believe I can or I believe I can't, I'm right. So at the moment, I don't do any hard things. And I think walking to the industry is probably a bit more than I would wish or like to do. Now, at some point, and this is where I smile because my son will tell me off, at some point you just got to do it, right? At some point, if you want to do a hard thing, you got to do a bit more, right? I'm sorry, you just do, and no one else can make you do that. But it doesn't need to be hard in other people's perception. Suffering is relative. For somebody, the Couch to 5K, which I think is one of the greatest training programs ever devised. Look, you're a 2:24 marathon, Jason, So you don't need that advice. You need completely different. What you're suffering is not a, 5K is always suffering. 5K's hurt for everybody.
5K's suck.
5K's suck. Sometimes I tell people that. They're like, what's your scariest race? I'm like, a 5K. Because I have to put my foot to the wall, vomit to here. Because I know I can. Like, I know I can run myself to vomit stage as close as possible. And it's harder. The art of suffering is a willingness. And if I can say, don't tell yourself, oh, why do I do this? Accept that hard thing will not reward you immediately. So this is the delayed gratification, right? It will suck in the moment. And I'm here to tell you that repeated actions of things that suck in the moment build a resilience and suffering that gives you skill sets and emotions that I think are very useful. So do not be defined by other people's hard things. And that's the best way to get into suffering. Whatever you're doing, just take one step further, one step at a time, and maybe I'll see you at backyard.
I don't think you'll see me at backyard, not anytime soon anyway.
Well,
but,
you did say I could ask you a question. You can
ask me a question.
You are a younger dude with an incredibly impressive 2:24 marathon. You've clearly, and for me, I'll be honest, I'm rarely impressed by the time. I just know the effort you put in. I know your Tuesday. I know the mornings. I know the efforts. I know the eating right. I know the sacrifice. I know. So love to see that. And I think ultra's an old man game. What's your thoughts on ultra for Jason? Do you think? Do you dream? Do you plan? It's not. I wouldn't imagine it's for you right now because it will kill your speed.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and there's always this changing metric in my endurance career. So I remember I got into running, and it was about 11 years ago now, and I was going to be running a marathon. Like, that was the first thing that I was planning on doing, and it didn't happen because I got injured. And so I was starting to realize that I was an all right runner, and that running a marathon was kind of a stupid idea because I should try and get faster and do all this kind of stuff and actually build to be able to run a marathon. So that's kind of what I started to focus on doing. And I remember moved into doing triathlon or duathlon and then triathlon and whatnot. And God, I must have been maybe 25 at the time. And I said, I'm not running a marathon until I'm 30. Now I turned 30 in a couple of months. I've already run 4 marathons. I did the first one 3 years ago. So
awesome.
I ruined that by about 3 years. And I've always said that I will, well, at least for the next little while, will never run ultra. And I think for me, that will probably stay that way. And it's mainly because I think we talked about this when we spoke last time as well. I look and I say, I've probably got best part of 5 or 6 years I'm still getting faster as a marathon runner, right?
For sure.
Let's say 35 is the new 30
Sure.
for marathon running, and that's where I'll reach my peak. And that's my plan. I'm going to keep working as hard as I can to get faster at the marathon, probably up until that point. At that point, I'll probably have to reassess and see if my body still loves me or not. And then we'll see what happens next. So yeah, I won't say never, but it's definitely not a current thought. And it's fascinating because, and this was not something I was expecting, but I would say half of the guests on this podcast are ultramarathon runners.
It is. I think your answer makes total sense. You know, it is, of course, while there are young people doing ultra, you know, it is not a young people game, particularly, you know, you've got speed. It will kill your speed. You know, it makes no sense. But you're right. You know, you reassess at 35, at 40, at 45, at 50, you know, because, you know, and this is the one thing I think a lot of runners have to deal with. You will get slower at some point. And that I was talking to a dude yesterday, you know, and he's, you know, late 40s, early 50s. And he's, you know, I was still getting okay. You know, I wasn't slowing a lot, but he suddenly slowed a lot, and it's really hurting him. Like he's sad. And I kept telling him, dude, look, you will get slower, but it doesn't mean you have to get worse. Like, I like this word, you can do more, you can do further, you could suffer, there's other avenues. And I think as a competitive person, you know, at some point your best marathon time will be behind you at some point, obviously, but that doesn't mean your best running. And I think that's why ultra attracts a lot. Well, both young and old, partly because there's a lot of social media stories about it, but yeah, you'll reassess in 10 years and let's see where it is.
Maybe at 35, I get back into triathlon and Ironman becomes a thing, and that might be our peak. We'll see.
Well, I mean, you could definitely get to Kona, no doubt about that. I mean, you were almost professional, you know. I think it would be worth doing Kona one day.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good fun, and yeah, who knows? It's a long way away. I want to ask a little bit about that suffering as it relates to leadership and your career and business. Sure. And you probably went through the biggest suffering periods, as we've kind of already talked about in your business.
Sure.
Falling apart around you. How did your suffering from running help you? And did it help you, or was it part of the problem? Were you able to suffer too well?
I think you sadly nailed it. You know, this unwillingness to stop or give in. I probably could have accepted my business wasn't going to make it earlier. And my superpower of not stopping, of being resilient, of carrying on, probably blinded me, even though several people were telling me, look, it's not going to make it. I'm like, yeah, but I can do it. I will not stop. But, you know, in the realities of business, when you don't have money, you got to stop, right? But you can always, you know, I can raise more money or sell more, or, you know, I haven't thought about this, but, you know, if the aid station's out, you'll find a half-used gel on the floor and scoop it up and suck it down, right? You know, there's always, or you'll find a river and scoop it, or a 7-Eleven and buy some juice, but that's not the long-term answer. Yeah, look, I do think, you know, of course, I think running makes me a better person. Whether it does or it doesn't, I don't know. You know, obviously when I don't run it, I suck more as a human because I just don't feel as happy and as good, but that's you know, obvious. As a leader, I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I do think it's probably my unwillingness to relent was probably not ideal. I will tell you one thing, during the hardest part, not when my company closed, but a year and a half before it closed, we went through an incredibly difficult time. And my mental health wasn't in a good place. And I didn't run for 4 months. And, you know, that's not good, right? It's funny because work people don't really see it. But a few friends on Strava had reached out like, are you okay? Like they weren't asking if I was injured physically. They said, are you okay? I remember, like, I was not okay. My answer was no. You know, it was really interesting that through running, some people could see, you know, what was going on. So I think it makes me, you know, I don't know. I think all the suffering makes a good leader because leader is suffering. I have a phrase that if the world was run by ultra runners or runners, there wouldn't be many wars. There's generally nice people. I think running makes you a better human. So I think it makes you a better leader because we're generally nicer people. So that's all the soft answers. But yeah, if I was honest, I think my unwillingness to stop probably didn't help.
You think there's a few world leaders at the moment that could benefit from a little bit of running maybe then? Or
Well, you never know, right? You never know. Well, I will tell you this. I'm sure there are some, But you know what I saw? Do you know who Harry Styles is from One Direction?
I do know who Harry Styles is, yes.
2:59:31 at Berlin.
Crazy, right?
I mean, that's solid.
He doesn't quite fit the bill, but maybe I need to get him on the podcast and chat about his running career, because he's clearly been doing a bit. Anyone running sub 3 is doing a bit of running.
Apparently he ran a 3:30. I mean, you could probably get away with a 3:35 if you have some natural talent and just do it. But you're not just doing a 2:59 without effort. You're just not.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I want to ask, our last bit of the podcast is about advice. And the usual is getting 3 pieces of advice, one on life, one on leadership, and one on running. Before we jump into those, I just want to backtrack a fraction and ask about your advice to other startups or other businesses that are going through those struggling periods, because, maybe your ability to suffer was potentially create a bit of a blind spot. But I'm sure as you've reflected on that and looked back at that, there were some pretty good learnings around, hold up, maybe this is the red flag I should have seen earlier, or whatever it might be. And obviously very situationally dependent on what the issue with your business was at the time. But is there a kind of key takeaway that you got from that would just be valuable for anybody?
Yeah. Punch yourself in the face as quick as you can. Take hard decisions much quicker. The speed of decisions will make all the difference, particularly the hard ones. It's easy to make easy decisions. Oh, we just raised $10 million. Let's hire some people. Super easy. Hey, we haven't got any money. We're running out of money. What should we do? I don't know if your decision will be right or wrong, but every second you don't take a decision is decreasing the chance of it. We could have saved it if I had been braver in the moment and taken a tough decision quicker. So, of course, I want to be right. Of course. But if I can give you one piece of advice, and it's hard. Like this, I'm not telling you, hey, there's fairies at the bottom of your garden with Easter eggs. Pop down there and get one. It's not fun. Take the really hard decisions. And if you're just a solo founder, or if it's going to be on you. In the end of the day, listen to everybody, but take a big, I think you know who Yuki Kawazuki is. And you maybe listen to Marathon Talk, zip up your Yuki suit, which was a famous phrase, which was, because Yuki just goes to the front and just batters away, right? And he famously won Boston one time, which I don't think I've ever cried at a marathon win, but when Yuki came through the rain in Boston, and of course then Dina won as well, in like just that classic of all races. But I think I never thought about it this way, but here's my piece of advice to a startup. Zip up your Yuki suit and take that decision right there and then, no matter how hard it feels.
If anyone doesn't know who Yuki Kawauchi is, I recommend looking him up. I think most people in Australia, particularly if you've done the Gold Coast, probably know him because he's a bit of a cult icon at the Gold Coast Marathon, but yeah, worth a look. And yeah, I think that's very sage advice. So I want to get a little bit more. What I want from you is your top piece of advice for life, your top piece of advice for leadership, and of course, your top piece of advice for running.
Okay, life. There is no they. There's no they. When people say, oh, they don't care, there's no they. They're all individual people doing their best, going home, watching Netflix and, in their cornflakes. Well, hopefully not cornflakes, because cornflakes are terrible. That's not a piece of life advice. Don't eat cornflakes. They're fucking terrible. Cornflakes are the worst, apart from Frosties. At least Frosties taste nice. There is no they. To me, remember, we're all individuals. And when people go, oh, they don't like me, or there's politics. There's no politics in the office. The politics are in your head. You are ascribing to people, oh, they will care what they will care what I post on social media. Sure, social media can be brutal. They don't care. They're going home and taking care of themselves. Once you realize that we're all just individual people, in general, and overwhelmingly trying our best, and you don't worry about the they don't exist, and so I have a simple test. Are you a good human? Mostly. Yes. Then just do your thing. Do your thing. Now, it's taken me a long time to, at 58, when I say I don't care what people think, I don't. But I also deeply care what people think. So how do I square that? I just try to be a good human. So hopefully they'll think, okay, but I don't do things to what other people think. I don't want to piss anybody off. So that's my major piece of life advice. Be yourself. It's totally fine. All those people think, oh, it'll be embarrassing if I do X, Y, or Z. No one cares. No one cares. Leadership, your job is not to tell people what to do. It's to make them want to do it. Your job is to motivate, encourage, listen, shield them from the crap, give them the space, buy them lunch. Say, so one thing I used to do at the end of every day in my office before COVID, I would walk around to anybody who was there. I would go up to them at the end of the day, because we work late with startup, and I would say thank you to them individually. Thank you. How you think I'm today? Sometimes, now I work late, so there's maybe of the 100 people, 30 was left. Every single person gets a thank you every single day. I think that's it. Make people want to come to work. And as a leader, if you have an office as a leader, you're not a leader. I'm sorry. End of. Full stop. Get out your office. What, think people want you to sit in an office by yourself or a leader? Get real, people. And my last piece for Rust, I was going to say do backyard, but that's stupid. Whatever the perceived of suffering is, and really it can just be the next lamppost. And don't go to it, understanding that the suck in the moment will reward you. I mean, I think, of course, you can get injured by running further. I get all of that. But if you take out the physical injury, there's people that said, prove me wrong with their little signs. Prove me wrong that doing a bit more running or exercise is bad for your feeling or your soul. If it's just one more lamp, just taking one exercise. I don't mean, go 100 miles straight away. Just trying the slight edge of where you are. Just take a little peek over, dip a toe. I don't think that's bad advice, and I don't think anybody's going to regret. And if you tip the toe and you don't like it, I'm good. Scroll it back. It's all fine, And that would be my advice.
I love it.
Thank you.
I think it's a great piece of advice. I think, we talked about it earlier, but it's just trying to find that practical application of the thing. The leadership advice you had there is golden as well, because I think people try and find these nuggets of how to be a better leader and what systems do I need and whatnot. Just go and be a human, right? Go thank people for the work that they're doing. It doesn't cost you anything, and it makes a big, your business was the best place to work in Singapore. And I imagine most of it was down to the fact that you just went and thanked people. Right?
This great phrase, people will forget what you say, they'll never forget how you make them feel. Never, I know I have quite a bit of energy, maybe my dad's over-adrenalized genes rolling down, but I'm always in there. And the other trick as a leader, so for example, if we work together and when you came in the weekend, I'd be like, hey, how was your run of the weekend? I have to remember, I didn't write it down, but I read somebody, I knew they loved baking or their kid was doing this. Oh, how was your kid's gymnastic? Oh, shit, thanks, man. Yeah, no. I have a phrase, be interested. If you're in sales, here's a free takeaway for anybody listening to the show. If you're in sales, be interested, not interesting. What I mean is if they talk about their thing, they said, oh, I just went on holiday to Bali. Don't you say, oh, I went to Bali as well. I don't give a shit. How was Bali? How was that? If you are interested, not before you are interesting, people will be like, oh, thanks, man. So I really tried to remember the bit of the personal life of each of the people. So that not only could I thank them for their work, I was like, oh, yeah, so how was your kids' gym recital or gym music recital? I know you were dragon boating at the weekend. How'd you go? Or I know they want to talk politics. So I'm like, hey, do you see that on the news at the weekend? And yeah, it takes a bit of time. It does mean you're probably taking half an hour at the beginning of the day and half an hour at the end of the day out of your time. But it doesn't cost a lot. It costs emotional effort and energy, but it feeds you too. Because I'm not going to lie, when we won best place to work, that didn't make me feel bad.
Yeah, can imagine. I love it. So we're 3 weeks away from backyard.
Yes, we are.
Crazy. So we may have to reconnect briefly to
Sure.
find out how it goes so the listeners aren't left on a complete tenterhook. But firstly, thank you so much for coming on and having a very open conversation today. I've very much enjoyed it, so hopefully the listeners will as well.
Thank you.
And of course, all the best for the craziness of backyard. I'm sure you'll have an epic time regardless of how it actually ends up going. And we will have to touch base to see how it all goes afterwards.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. Honestly, when somebody said, there's a podcast about execs who run, I was like, oh, shit. And I listened to a couple. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, and this dude runs 224? What? Wait, he's a runner? So thank you for doing the show, because I know it takes your effort as well. So thank you for doing it. And look, thank you for the love and regards for Biggs. I mean, I can't even tell you how excited I am. in a funny kind of way, I don't want it to come because, after it comes, then
You've done, yeah.
and I have excuse for getting up at 4:30 every morning and training, right? So now I'm like, what am I going to do? Just get up at 4:30 because that's how life is. And, I get to meet Laz. And I mean, that's for an ultra geek like me, just getting a selfie with Laz. I'm like, I'll send you my book. I have about 5 poems about Laz, so I'll send you my book so you can see that. But yeah, thank you very much, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
One final question. Who's more excited about it, you or your wife?
Oh, not even. I think she's super excited for it to be over.
Yeah. I love it. Hey, thank you very much, Ned.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Jason.
Thanks for listening to Execs Who Run. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And better yet, share it with a friend or colleague who runs as well. You can find more stories and episodes at execswhorun.com or follow us along on Instagram or LinkedIn. Just search Execs Who Run. Also, you can join our Strava group to connect with other listeners on the run. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you the next conversation very soon.